Welcome back to the deep dive. I really hope you are somewhere comfortable right now.
Yeah, ideally with a fan directly on you.
Exactly. I hope you found a spot where the air is moving. Maybe you have a cold drink in your hand, ice clinking against the glass.
Because you're going to need it for the atmosphere we're stepping into today.
Right, because where we are going today, the vibe is heavy. We are stepping back into a very specific, very visceral moment in time.
We are heading to the summer of 1968.
And not just any summer day. We are dropping right into a sweltering Monday night in upstate New York.
Elmira, New York, to be exact. And it is hot, it is humid, the air is so thick with moisture you could practically swim through it.
It's that kind of weather that just, sticks your shirt to your back and makes your brain feel like it's wrapped in wool.
The kind of heat that makes you want to cancel all your plans and just lie on the floor.
Which is actually almost what happened.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get into the story of this incredibly sticky night, I want to set the stage for you. We are doing a sort of late-night lounge-style conversation today.
Dim the lights in your mind.
Yeah, dim the lights. Imagine a fan oscillating in the corner, trying its absolute best, and get ready, because we are about to witness one of the most unique and, frankly, entertaining sessions in this entire body of work.
It really stands out in the archives. I mean, usually when we crack open these books, we're bracing ourselves for the heavy stuff.
The deep metaphysics.
Right. We expect detailed explanations on the nature of the multidimensional soul, or how consciousness constructs physical matter, the quote-unquote secrets of the universe type material.
And don't get me wrong, we do get a little bit of physics today, which is fascinating.
We do.
But the core of this session is something completely different. Today, we aren't seeing Seth the teacher or Seth the philosopher.
No, today we're seeing Seth the CEO.
Yes. We are seeing a non-physical entity decide to figuratively straighten his tie, roll up his sleeves, and just dictate a savage corporate business letter.
It is the ultimate, move over, let me handle this moment.
It really is. It's a ghost writing his own cover letter to a publisher.
But before we pour the drinks and get into the heat and the humor of this whole situation, we should probably set the ground rules.
Absolutely. We need to make sure you know exactly where this intel is coming from.
Right.
So we are looking exclusively at session 420.
From the early sessions, book 8 of the Seth Material.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A crucial citation. This specific session was recorded on July 1st, 1968. And we need to give massive credit where it is due. This incredible material is published by the New Awareness Network.
And we always say this, but it bears repeating. We want you to bypass our commentary eventually.
The source is always better than the summary.
It is. So if you want to read these transcripts yourself, you can find these books and the entire library at the New Awareness Network website and bookstore.
That is sethcenter.com/Seth-early sessions.
Highly recommend checking that out. It's an absolute treasure trove of consciousness research.
And just so we are all on the same page, legally and ethically, before we dive into the deep end, I have to state clearly that this podcast will be distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes.
We are here to learn, we're here to discuss and explore these archives.
And there's so much to explore today. Usually I come into these deep dives expecting to have my mind completely blown by some new structural theory of reality.
Which happens often.
It does. But today, reading through session 420, I found myself literally laughing out loud.
The premise is just very cinematic.
It is. You have Jane Roberts, who acts as the medium, and her husband, Robert Butts, and they are just stressed out.
They're sweating in their living room trying to write a letter to a big shot publisher.
Prentice-Hall.
Right, Prentice-Hall. And they just don't know what to say. They're stuck.
And suddenly Seth just chimes in from the ether and basically says, "I'll be my own secretary today, thank you very much."
It is funny, and the humor is very palpable when you read the transcript, but it's also incredibly revealing about the relationship between Jane, Rob, and Seth.
How so?
Well, it shows a level of everyday partnership that we don't always get to see. But also, I have to say, there is a distinctly chilling element to this session as well.
Oh, absolutely. The mood shifts from this sort of corporate comedy to something much darker and much more serious very quickly.
We're going to talk about a specific part of this letter where Seth reveals that he knows medical secrets about a man.
Secrets that even the man's wife didn't know.
That part really gave me pause. It demonstrates the sheer reach of Seth's perception.
It's a stark reminder that while Seth can be witty and he can be conversational, we are dealing with a consciousness that has access to information that simply shouldn't be accessible to anyone.
Let alone a personality being channeled in a living room in upstate New York.
Right. And then, just to round out the whole evening, we're going to talk about the weather.
The weather.
The weather. Because apparently high humidity and heat waves aren't just annoying for us physically, they actually mess with the physics of channeling.
Seth gives us a full, detailed breakdown of the thermodynamics of being a medium.
He does. It's a fascinating look at the actual mechanics of how this energy exchange works.
So we have business strategy, we have ethical dilemmas, medical clairvoyance, and atmospheric physics.
All in 1 hour of a summer night in 1968. So let's just jump right in. Let's set the scene.
Monday, July 1st, 1968.
9:09 p.m. Elmira, New York. Now, I don't know if you've ever spent a summer in the Northeast, but when it gets hot there, it gets sticky.
Oh, Rob's notes for the session explicitly mentioned this. He writes that the evening was very hot and very humid.
Oppressively uncomfortable.
Exactly. It had just rained, too. So you have to imagine that steam rising off the pavement, that heavy, wet air that just sort of hangs in the room.
It's that kind of weather where you sit on the couch and you feel glued to the upholstery.
Yeah.
Every movement is a chore.
And Jane Roberts was not feeling it.
Not at all.
The notes say she didn't feel that conditions were very good. She almost called the whole thing off.
Which is completely understandable. We've learned from studying this material that channeling is incredibly physically demanding work.
It burns a massive amount of energy.
It alters the body's chemistry. Doing that in a sweltering room without modern air conditioning, just thinking about it sounds exhausting.
But there was something else hanging over their heads that day, wasn't there?
Yes. It wasn't just the heat making them miserable, it was the letter.
The dreaded correspondence.
Right. A few days prior, on June 27, Jane had received a letter from a man named Tam Mossman.
Tam Mossman. He was an editor at Prentice-Hall.
And we really have to contextualize this for you. In 1968, for a couple living in Elmira who are writing about a channeled entity, getting a letter from Prentice-Hall is the big leagues.
It's a massive deal. This is a major mainstream publishing house. They are seriously looking at publishing the Seth Material.
But, like any good corporate publisher, they want to do their due diligence. They aren't just going to publish a book by a ghost on blind faith.
Right. So Mossman writes to Jane asking for information and references regarding 3 specific people.
Dr. Instream, Dr. Jean Bernard, and Ray Vanover.
These were researchers, psychologists, and parapsychologists who had interacted with Jane and Seth during the early testing phases.
Prentice-Hall essentially wanted to know, are these people legit? What do they actually think of you? Can we trust them as references?
And Jane and Rub had spent the entire day, this incredibly hot, sticky Monday, trying to draft a response.
And we have all been there. You're trying to write an important email, you type out a sentence, and then you just delete the whole thing.
You worry you're saying too much.
Or not enough. You obsess over the tone.
Rod actually notes that they found it impossible to write this letter. He says that answers to what seemed like simple questions could expand with a life of their own.
Which is the fundamental problem with the Seth phenomena, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can't just give a simple yes or no answer to a corporate editor.
No, because everything requires context. Everything requires a 5-page explanation of how consciousness works just to make sense of the basic premise.
So they are completely stuck. They are hot, they are tired, and they are frustrated. The trash can is probably full of crumpled up paper at this point.
And here's where it gets really interesting. This is that telepathic moment we hinted at earlier.
It's such a lovely little detail. Rob and Jane are talking right before the session is supposed to start, and they discover something.
They discovered that both of them, independently throughout the day, had secretly thought about asking Seth to just write the letter for them.
But neither of them had actually said it out loud to the other person.
Exactly.
Why do you think that is? Why wouldn't they just ask?
Because it felt disrespectful to them. They viewed Seth as a profound teacher, a philosopher.
A mentor.
Right. You don't ask your spiritual guru to type up your business emails. It felt petty to them. It felt like treating this vast consciousness like a secretary.
So they kept the thought totally private.
They sit for the session at 9:00 p.m., as usual, without making any formal request for help with the letter.
They just sit there, waiting to see what happens, probably expecting a deep lecture on the nature of time or molecular structures.
Jane goes into trance. Her voice deepens. It changes. She takes off her glasses, which is the physical tell that Seth is present.
And what does Seth say? His very first words.
He says, "I do not mean to demean you. However, I would appreciate it if you would this evening act as a stenographer on my behalf in a business matter."
I love that so much. Act as a stenographer. He picked up on their unspoken wish instantly.
It's the ultimate I got this moment.
It totally is.
Yeah.
And it validates the connection they have. It shows that the communication isn't just happening when Jane is officially in a trance state.
There is a constant underlying subconscious link.
And frankly, it was also just a profound act of kindness.
It was. Seth saw that they were struggling. He saw that the heat was making them miserable and anxious, and he just decided to take the workload right off their shoulders.
He basically said, "You two were overthinking this. Let me handle the corporate suits."
So Rob grabs his pen, and Seth begins dictating a letter directly to Mr. Mossman and Miss Carr at Prentice-Hall.
And the tone. This isn't flowery, mystical language. This is direct. He starts the letter by saying, "May this letter serve to introduce us. I am Seth."
Can you imagine being the editor at Prentice-Hall opening that in the mail?
I am Seth. It's so bold.
And he continues, "Since matters pertaining to me are at issue here, then I feel I would like to make a few comments of my own."
He is incredibly assertive. He is establishing himself not as a concept, but as a person, as a direct party to the contract.
Exactly. He's making it clear he's not property to be sold by Jane and Rob. He's a partner in the endeavor.
So let's look at these references Seth provides for the publisher. Because he doesn't just do the standard, "These guys are great, you can trust them" routine.
No, he gives a deep psychological profile of the people who were brought in to test him.
He starts with Dr. George Instream. Now, Instream was an academic psychologist who had run a series of tests with Jane for a year.
Twice a week.
Twice a week. That is a lot of rigorous testing.
It's a grueling schedule for any medium.
So what is Seth's take on Dr. Instream?
He calls him an upstanding and upright man and a very cautious one.
Cautious. In the academic world, cautious is a very loaded word.
It is. And then Seth drops this incredible bit of academic gossip. This is the tea from 1968.
Spill it. What does he say?
Seth says that Instream is so cautious that he allowed Dr. J.B. Rhine to make advances in the field of parapsychology that Instream could have easily produced himself.
Ouch. That is some serious shade. For any listeners who might not know, J.B. Rhine is essentially the godfather of modern parapsychology.
He founded the parapsychology lab at Duke University.
Right, he's the guy who made the ESP card guessing tests famous. He is the name everyone in the field knows.
And Seth is basically saying Instream could have been Rhine. He had the data. He had the perfect subject right here with Jane, but he was too scared to publish it.
Seth actually says Instream holds this against Rhine to this day. It's such a human observation.
It really is. It speaks to professional jealousy, to deep regret, and to that paralysis of being just a little too careful with your career.
It's funny because Seth is this non-physical, multidimensional consciousness, yet he understands these petty human dynamics perfectly.
He understands the academic ego completely.
So what about the tests they actually did with Instream? Does Seth say they were a perfect success?
He doesn't. Seth is very honest. He admits they weren't perfect.
Right. Seth says, our results with him were good, though there was considerable distortion simply because Rubert's abilities had not been sufficiently developed.
And remember, Ruburt is Seth's name for Jane. He's freely admitting that early on the signal wasn't entirely clear.
But he still claims there were direct hits.
Yes, but here is the conflict that Seth highlights for the publisher. Instream wanted statistics.
He wanted hard numbers.
He wanted to roll the dice 1,000 times and calculate the odds. He wanted math. But Seth was giving qualitative information.
Character readings, deep insights, personality profiles.
Seth says, these results could not be mathematically appraised in terms of the odds against them, and this was what Dr. Instream was looking for.
It's that classic clash between science and art. Instream wanted a neat spreadsheet. Seth gave him a complex biography.
Precisely. So Seth is warning the publisher here. He says, look, Instream will tell you we aren't frauds. He will absolutely vouch for our character. But no academic psychologist, including Dr. Instream, will give you a statement to the effect that I am a survival personality.
He's brilliantly managing their expectations. He's telling Prentice-Hall, don't expect this guy to go on the record and say ghosts are real. He's too worried about his tenure. He's too worried about looking foolish to his peers.
Which is a very shrewd business move. He's completely disarming the reference before the publisher even picks up the phone to call him.
It's genius. He's a good guy, but he's a coward.
That's exactly the implication.
Okay, so next on the publisher's list of references is Ray Vanover. This one seems a lot shorter in the transcript.
Much shorter. Seth simply says he scarcely met him and didn't speak to him directly.
But he does confirm that the clairvoyant impressions Jane received about Vanover were correct.
It's a quick stamp of approval, but a distant one. Just yeah, he's fine. Jane was accurate.
But then, Then you get to Dr. Jean Bernard. And this is where the entire tone of the session shifts for me.
It really does.
This stops being a clever business letter and suddenly starts being a profound demonstration of power and, more importantly, of ethics.
Dr. Jean Bernard, another psychologist they interacted with. Seth reveals to the publisher that he did a session specifically for Bernard when Bernard was ill.
But here is the massive catch. Bernard didn't ask for the session.
No, he didn't. Bernard's wife requested it. She was worried about him.
And here's the hit. Seth provided a psychological interpretation and clairvoyant impressions about Bernard's illness.
And Seth claims in this letter that a few of the early factual statements made were unknown, I believe, even to his wife.
Let's just pause on that for a second. Seth is claiming he knew details about this man's health-specific symptoms or hidden pathology that the man hadn't even disclosed to his own wife.
It's incredibly invasive when you think about it.
It's that chilling aspect we talked about in the intro. You really can't hide anything from this entity. If he tunes into you, he sees everything.
It shows that privacy, at least in the physical way we think of it, just doesn't exist to a consciousness that operates outside of time and space.
But look at what Seth does with that highly sensitive information. This is arguably the most fascinating part of the entire episode.
Seth is trying to get a book deal, right? He is trying to prove to Prentice-Hall that he is real and legitimate.
He has the ultimate smoking gun. He knew medical secrets about Dr. Bernard. He could easily tell the publisher, call Bernard right now, ask him about this specific secret symptom. He'll be forced to tell you I'm real.
Any modern marketing guru would tell him to use it. Post the receipts.
But he doesn't do it.
He flat out refuses. He says, explicitly to the publisher, I will not have any part of showing my own legitimacy by pointing up the weaknesses of a man's condition.
Wow. Let me just read that again because it's so powerful. I will not have any part of showing my own legitimacy by pointing up the weaknesses of a man's condition.
That is high ethics.
It really is. It's a completely unshakable moral compass.
He goes on to explain that it wasn't generally known in their circle that Bernard was even ill. And more importantly, Bernard still did not know his wife had requested that session.
Oh, wow. I missed the weight of that. So if Seth blabbed about this to Prentice-Hall, he would be outing the wife for going behind her husband's back to a psychic.
He would be causing massive marital strife.
Seth says he did not know his wife requested the session, and I do not want it known.
He is actively protecting the privacy of the wife and preserving the dignity of the husband.
He tells the publisher, he will give you a statement to my benefit, but not the kind of a statement you may want to use.
That is incredible integrity, especially when you compare it to the culture we live in today.
Right. Think about social media today. If someone has the receipts, they post them immediately.
We live in an era of complete oversharing, of exposing people just to win a trivial argument online.
We somehow think that transparency means zero privacy for anyone.
And here is a quote-unquote ghost from 1968 saying, no, this man's privacy matters significantly more than my book deal.
It really challenges the hardened skeptic's view of the whole phenomenon, doesn't it?
It completely undermines it. If Jane Roberts were just a fraud, making all this up to get famous and get a publishing contract, why would she, acting as Seth, refuse to use the absolute best evidence she had?
Why would she intentionally hide the proof from the very people she's trying to impress?
Exactly. It suggests strongly that the persona of Seth operates on a very strict, independent moral code that completely overrides the immediate, desperate desires of Jane and Rob to get published.
It makes the character Seth feel incredibly distinct and separate from Jane's own psychology.
It does.
So, Seth wraps up his references. He's deftly dealt with the cautious academic, the distant acquaintance, and the secret illness.
And then he does something a little bit cheeky.
He invites the publishers to visit them in Elmira.
He says, I do suggest now a meeting in Elmira. He wants to cut through all the corporate red tape.
He tells them, basically, any questions you have can be answered in person without the necessity for long and complicated letters.
And there is a great moment in the transcript where Seth pauses his dictation. He turns to Rob and says, you may delete that phrase from the letter if you wish.
He hesitates. He gives Rob an out.
But then the notes say he leans forward, looks confidential and amused, and basically says, actually, no, leave it in.
He's playing with them. He knows he's being very forward. It's like he's thinking, should I be polite? No, let's be bold.
And then he drops a prediction. He looks at the probability of the future regarding the book deal.
He says, my material will be published. That's a very confident statement to make to an editor who hasn't bought the book yet.
But he immediately qualifies it. And this is classic foundational Seth philosophy right here.
Right.
He says, probabilities always operate, and free will is always involved.
He never says the future is locked or set in stone. He's not a fortune teller at a carnival staring into a crystal ball.
No, he sees the threads of probability based on current momentum.
But then he adds, however, I believe that you will be my publishers.
And spoiler alert for anyone listening, Prentice-Hall absolutely did publish the Seth Material.
The Seth Material, Seth Speaks, The Nature of Personal Reality,
Yep.
those massive classics, all came out through Prentice-Hall.
So a major point for Seth's predictive abilities there.
Indeed. And then he signs off the letter. He tells Rob, you may sign the letter, Seth, and initial it yourself.
Can you imagine the legal validity of that? A binding corporate document signed by a non-physical entity.
Initial it yourself, Rob. It's a wonderful moment of levity to end the dictation.
But as soon as the letter is done, the tone in the room shifts again. Rob notes that the session has been quite short.
It's only been about 30 or 40 minutes at this point. Usually they go much longer, sometimes for hours.
Rob notices the brevity, and he asks Seth directly, how does our weather today bear upon communicating with you?
Because remember, it is still stiflingly hot in that room. The fan is just pushing hot, wet air around.
And this leads us into the final segment of this deep dive, the physics of channeling.
Because Seth doesn't just say, it's too hot, Rob, I'm tired.
No, he gives a highly technical explanation of why heat physically interferes with the signal.
He talks about electromagnetism. He says, the unstable elements are not helpful. The electromagnetic components of the atmosphere and of the personality, both are in a state of unbalance.
Wait, let's really unpack that phrase, electromagnetic components of the personality.
He's linking the physical atmosphere, the storm outside, the high humidity, directly to the electromagnetic field of the human personality.
Exactly. He's saying we are not isolated biological machines. We are energy fields.
And when the atmosphere is unstable, our personal energy fields are actually affected.
According to Seth, yes. We aren't just physically uncomfortable. We are electromagnetically altered by the weather.
That is wild.
He says these conditions usually make communication very poor. He mentions that certain chemical and electromagnetic changes must occur within Jane's physical system during a session for it to work.
And he explains that during a trance state, a deep channeling trance, the body temperature naturally lowers.
It cools down significantly. It's a physiological marker of the trance state.
But the ambient heat of the room that night is extremely high. It's probably pushing 90 degrees with terrible humidity.
So you have a massive conflict. Seth calls it heat conversion.
Heat conversion.
He says the high physical heat of the room mitigates against the trance state. It actively fights the biological cooling process Jane needs to maintain the connection.
So the environment is literally fighting the physiology required for the channel to stay open. The body wants to cool down to let Seth in, but the room is forcing the body to heat up.
Exactly. He says if the temperature gets too high, breaks occur. Breaks in the mental images, breaks in the reception of the clairvoyant impressions.
The signal just gets filled with static.
That makes perfect sense. It's like trying to run a high-performance computer processor in a room without a cooling fan. Eventually, it just overheats and glitches out.
That's a great analogy. And Steph makes a really interesting, very specific distinction here between normal dreams and out-of-body experiences, or OBEs.
Yeah, let's break that down, because I think a lot of people assume they are kind of the same thing, just, mental stuff happening in your head while you sleep.
Seth says they are physiologically opposite in terms of temperature.
He says dreams themselves activate physical temperature and all bodily processes.
So when you are having a vivid normal dream, your body actually heats up.
Yes, your metabolism activates, you run hotter.
Okay, so dreaming equals heat.
But, he says, in out-of-body experiences, there is a lowering rather than a heightening of body temperature.
So projection equals cold.
Correct. Even if an out-of-body projection starts from within a dream state, as soon as the consciousness actually begins to separate or project outward, the physical body temperature drops.
That is a massive distinction.
And Seth says this is a crucial biological marker that mainstream science has completely missed.
He actually calls out the scientist of 1968. He says, the recent dream experiments are highly superficial in this regard.
He's basically saying, you guys aren't checking the thermometer.
He lays down a direct challenge to researchers. He says, until the legitimacy of out-of-body experiences is recognized, no investigative experiments will be carried on, of course.
He is giving them the blueprint. He is saying, if you want to find the soul, bring a thermometer to your sleep studies.
If the subject gets significantly colder, while their brain activity remains high,
Yeah.
maybe they aren't just having a vivid dream.
Maybe they've actually left the building.
That is fascinating. It turns this seemingly woo-woo, untestable topic into something strictly measurable, thermostat dynamics.
It gives researchers a physical marker to look for. It grounds the mystical completely in the physical.
And because of this intense heat, because of this struggle against the temperature in the room, Seth decides he needs to end the session early.
He says, I will then end the session. Jane is personally quite sensitive to heat.
He's protecting his instrument. He's taking care of Jane.
He knows she is pushing her physical limits just to get this letter written.
Which brings us full circle to the very beginning of the night. The session started with him writing a letter to save them from emotional stress, and it ends with him closing the connection to save her from physical exhaustion.
It's a very protective, almost paternal session. It shows a tremendous amount of care for them as individuals.
The session officially ends at 10:05 p.m. Short, sweet, and incredibly productive.
And Rowe actually adds a little historical note at the very end of the transcript.
What does he say?
He writes, it is July 2 as I type this. Today, Jane wrote to Jean Bernard and to Ray Van Over regarding statements.
So they followed Seth's instructions immediately the very next day.
They sent the letter. They trusted the boss.
And the rest, as they say, is publishing history.
It really is.
So let's unpack everything we've just witnessed. Session 420 gives us such a kaleidoscopic view of who Seth actually is as a personality.
It shatters the standard caricature, doesn't it? I think sometimes people view channeled entities as these vague, lofty voices just spouting spiritual platitudes from a cloud.
Right, love is light and all that generic stuff.
And Seth does talk about love, of course, but here Seth is sharp. He's incredibly business savvy.
He's gossiping about academic feuds, he's negotiating contracts and assessing risks.
He's acting as a strategic consultant for their career.
But at the exact same time, he remains deeply, unshakably ethical. That moment with Dr. Bernard is what really stuck with me.
He had the receipts. He could have proved his power to the publisher instantly.
But he chose privacy over proof. He chose to protect a marriage over securing a book deal.
It establishes profound trust. If you're going to invite a non-physical consciousness into your mind, into your daily life, you need to know it has boundaries.
You need to know it won't sell out your deepest secrets for a little bit of fame.
Seth proved beyond a shadow of a doubt in this session that his values are independent of Jane's immediate needs.
And then, the science of it all, the idea that our consciousness is physically tethered to the world through electromagnetism and temperature.
It grounds the mystical in the physical environment.
It really makes you wonder, on a hot, sticky summer day, when you feel sluggish and foggy, is it just physical dehydration?
Or is your connection to your own higher self literally experiencing static due to the ambient heat?
Right. Seth says the electromagnetic components of the personality are unbalanced by the weather. We're part of the environment.
We aren't separate from the storm outside. We are reacting to it on a level we don't even perceive.
So, for you listening, why does all of this matter? Why should you care about a business letter written by a ghost in 1968?
I think it matters because it beautifully shows the integration of the spiritual and the practical.
We often try to keep them so separate. This is my work life and this is my spiritual life.
Exactly. And Seth is saying, no, I'll write the cover letter. Spiritual wisdom is meant to be applied directly to your life.
It's meant to help you navigate the annoying, sticky, bureaucratic parts of your day, not just the time you spend on the meditation cushion.
I love that takeaway. Use your intuition to write your difficult emails.
Maybe don't sign them, Seth, though. HR might have some follow-up questions for you.
Yeah, probably best to stick to signing your own name.
Before we wrap up, I want to remind everyone again, if this deep dive sparked your curiosity, and I really hope it did, you need to go read the source material for yourself.
There is so much more in there. This was session 420 from the Early Sessions Book 8.
And you can find that exact book and the entire incredible library of Seth books at the New Awareness Network website.
Please go to sethcenter.com/the early sessions. Support the publishers who have worked so hard to keep this material alive and accessible.
Absolutely. And remember, we are distributing this deep dive free of charge for educational purposes because we believe this knowledge needs to be out there.
It's just too good to keep hidden in the archives.
So here is my final provocative thought for you to chew on as you go about the rest of your day.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about Dr. Bernard.
Right.
Seth refused to use a man's secret illness to prove he was real, even though it would have guaranteed him the book deal he wanted. He chose ethics over proof.
A rare choice.
In a world today where we constantly demand pics or it didn't happen, where privacy is routinely traded for a little bit of online attention, what does it really say that a disembodied personality from 1968 had better privacy ethics than most people on the internet today?
That is a sting, but it's incredibly true.
And secondly, if temperature truly affects consciousness in the way Seth describes, are we literally thinking differently on a hot day than a cold one?
Are our dreams physiologically different in the winter?
Is our connection to our own intuition fluctuating every time we adjust the thermostat?
I think the answer is probably yes, and I think we need to start paying a lot more attention to it.
It's definitely something to think about the next time you check the weather app. Thank you so much for joining us in the lounge today. Stay cool and keep diving deep.
Goodbye, everyone.